So let's come to easy cross-legged position. Today's session is based around the throat chakra. So vishuddhi chakra, the energy around the front and the back of the throat. So that includes the neck, it includes the shoulders, and it includes Jaladhara Bandha, which is our throat lock. So energetically, when we draw the chin in towards the breastbone, and we draw the sort of center of the head back, like we're meditating, for instance. It's a lot of Jaladhara Bandha in a meditation position. We'll be working with that. We'll be working a little bit with Ujjayi, with an Om, the vocalization, to open up this center of energy. So this energy around this throat area is very much to do with our right to speak our own truth. It's about resonance, it's about vibration, it's about communication, purification, and listening, actually, interestingly. So it connects with the symbolic world of the mind, as do all of the upper chakras, whereas the lower chakras are very much about belonging and rooting and grounding in this world. And this energy center develops around 7 to 12 years, given the opportunity. So I'm very much in the midst of that with my two eldest, the right to speak one's own truth. And there's always a tussle, especially one of them's particularly quiet and will not speak his own truth, and the other one wants to speak her truth all the time. So it's really interesting. So just coming into the body, noticing how you feel, noticing where the breath is, and acknowledging that region around the throat. So we're going to loosen the shoulders firstly, bringing the hands to the shoulder girdle and scooping the arms forwards and backwards, making those circles as integral to the movement of the spine as you want. And just notice how much space there is within the shoulder girdle, particularly as you move the elbows back. So you've got this almost backward breast, what's it called, butterfly stroke. And then let's come back in the opposite direction. So you really are coming into your butterfly. Breathing as you open the arms up and over and draw them back down. Lovely. And then as you come down, let's bring the hands to the thighs. So we're then going to come into the neck muscle, the sternomastoid. I'm coming into a half salamander. This is called a half salamander according to Stanley Rosenberg, who's a sacrocranial therapist and a rolfer. So let's draw the ear down to the shoulder, opening up the side of the neck. Allow for that shoulder to drop down. And we're going to utilize the eyes in order to soften around the neck muscles, to soften around the cranial nerves. So let's draw the eyes down to the floor, keeping the face forwards, holding the eyes down to the floor and observing whether already anything is changing, is taking place within your body, any transitional states. We're looking for those signs, those symptoms of moving into the parasympathetic, such as salivation, such as a need to sigh. Just noticing how that is within your body and your nervous system, as this is very much about harnessing our nervous systems. Now we can bring the hand to the side of the head if you want something slightly stronger, with the eyes gazing down towards the floor. And if this is not making a difference within your body, you can bring the hand into your full salamander, coming into a lateral extension, really harnessing the healing power of the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve that transits down from the cranial region, the brainstem, so it's the 10th cranial nerve, moves down through the neck into the viscera around the chest, has a lot to do with the heart rate and down into the digestive system. So we're hacking into the vagus nerve here. And you can hold this for about 30 seconds or longer, or just as long as it takes for a sense of the salivation to come in. Now, if you've got a dry mouth, you'll know that you're working within the sympathetic nervous system, more of a state of fight or flight. And we're going to release the hand from the side, Release the hand from the side of the head and bring the head back up. And acknowledge how you feel. So this works quite strongly within my body because I do it on a regular basis. Just notice how it is for you, maybe more subtle. Now we're going to drop the ear down to the right shoulder, noticing if the shoulder creeps up, and roll it down. We're then going to gaze to the bottom of the eye socket down to the floor to utilize the optic nerve and the eye muscles. We're then going to creep the hand onto the side of the head if you need something stronger, looking for those signs, whether you need to sigh, whether you're salivating, whether you're dropping down into a sense of calm. And indeed, if you want to bring it into full salamander, you get hold of the ribcage and pull, which always seems really strange to pull into the ribcage, but you're really accessing this in a stronger way. I find this so strong, in fact, that potentially I don't need to do this side of things, but just notice how this is in your body. Feeling into the neck, remembering that we're dealing with the area around the throat today. Acknowledging whatever comes up, releasing the hand from the side of the rib cage, releasing the hand from the side of the head, and drawing the gaze back up. Now, I feel quite woozy from that. Just notice how you feel. It may be very different for you. Now, we're just going to go through what Jaladhara Bandha is, with that sense of the throat chakra, the energy around the throat. And let's feel like we can draw the chin back to the center point of the body. So the reason for this is generally our posture can look a bit like this because we are forward-thinking creatures and we sit at desks. We're trying to realign ourselves so the chin draws in, so it's more of a meditation position. The chin draws in, points down towards the breastbone, and the hyoid bone, which is this amazing Y-shaped bone that floats in the center of the throat, draws back. So you can't see it. If I come into this, you're coming into this kind of position, and your neck will feel like it's lengthened at the back here. Jaladhara Bandha. Now, sometimes we see yogis doing really extreme things. We're not looking for anything extreme here. We're looking for a sense of softness, a sense of opening. And we're also going to draw ourselves into that sense of Jaladhara Bandha and vishuddhi chakra, which is this energy center, with ujjayi breath. So just to recap, if we bring the hand in front of the mouth and imagine that we're steaming up a window before we're cleaning it. So you open the mouth. And it sounds a bit like a very soft Darth Vader. Often when we're beginners within ujjayi breath, we go for a really full-on Darth Vader. But as you become more practiced, it tends to become more subtle. Just steaming up your window hand. On an exhalation. Now, we're going to do that with the mouth closed. So with that sense of the mouth closed, we're going to do the same thing as though you're harring to get that Darth Vader aspect with the mouth closed. So bring the hands down. And you might hear that audible sound internally as you inhale and you exhale. So it sounds like an ocean internally. It helps with interoception. It helps anchor the mind on the breath, which we're really looking for in our yoga practice. The next thing that we're also going to bring into our practice is the sound Om, which is traditionally utilized within many yoga practices. And when we use that sense of the mantra, it can be helpful to acknowledge that it's a three-part sound. You have an ah sound, an oo, and an at the end. And they are equal lengths. One is connected with the past, midsection is the present, at the end is to do with the future. Okay, but in terms of what that does to the throat chakra, it doesn't matter what it means. It doesn't matter what the sound is. It doesn't matter if it's some sort of Sanskrit, appropriation towards sound. We're thinking about, as we do this, how that feels internally and what that does to the extension of our exhalation. So let's do 3 of those together. We're going to inhale through the nostrils freely, exhale freely. Remember to relax the belly. Inhale together. exhaling right to the end. Inhaling. Inhaling. At the end of the exhalation, draw your chin in, lift up the crown of the head, Jaladhara Bandha. Lovely. Now we're going to feel into the shoulders, so ensure your shoulders feel okay. We're going to come into a kind of locking action as we bring the left arm over the right and buckle up with the right. If you have any shoulder impingement or injuries, just be very cautious about what sensory information your body's giving you. You don't want to battle with your body within this, especially if there's some history there. You want to feel like you're in a space that feels comfortable and easeful. Breathing into the back of the shoulders, front of the shoulders here. Release your buckle, as it were, and open up the arm, a bit like it's a wing. So you're thinking about the shoulder blade here. Opening up the right arm, feeling that shoulder blade draw back, and then wing over the right arm, buckling up with the left. How does this side feel? There's more ease and movement in this side for me, I can tell that from feeling into it. That might be the case for you, there may be some difference. And release and open up your wing. So I love this image of the wing. I think that's really helpful. I'm not thinking about my bingo wings, of course. Now we're going to bring some padding underneath and in front to come into Yoga Mudra. Firstly, I want you to think about the hands and if they're comfortable to clasp behind the body. And as you clasp the hands, you might want to bring the heel of the hands together. Just see how that feels. And with an exhalation, we're going to be folding forwards to bring the forehead down to the ground or to the mat, lifting the arms. Now, if it's not comfortable to clasp the hands and lift the arms, you can bring the hands down and simply work with the forward fold action. Okay, so that's an option. We're going to exhale, draw the forehead down. You can use a bolster, blanket, brick, lifting up through the arms, lift up. We're going to do that 3 times. Excellent use of bolsters there. And forward fold, exhale. And lift up. Notice how it feels to bow down in this way. I'm doing it slowly, mindfully. Then we're going to change the lock of the hands. So you've come into one clasp, you come into the least habituated clasp. That can feel really weird if you're not used to doing it. Inhale, exhale, forward fold. Inhale, release. A very simple thing, but you might find that the forward fold is rather calming to the nervous system. And just notice what you notice. Notice if you feel dizzy. Notice whatever arises, and notice how it feels to bring the forehead down. And then release up and out. We're now going to come down onto our backs into a semi-supine. And if you want to use your blanket to be extra, say, luxurious with yourself today, use the blanket. Feel free to use something to support you. Now, we'll need a little bit of space behind us as we come into our flowing Dvipadapitham. Make sure you've got space for that. And as you come down into your semi-supine, acknowledge what's going on around your neck and your chin. Acknowledge whether your chin is pointing up towards the ceiling, in which case your neck will be crunched. I'm trying to show you that, but it might not be that clear. And if that is the case, you need to adjust the angle of the head. You can do that by lifting and literally tilting the chin in towards the chest. I would say that's one of the most important alignment changes you can make, as well as the position of the pelvis to affect the spine. And just keep that chin tucked in so you notice that there's a sense of length. We're then going to come into a pelvic tilt. So opening up the feet against the floor, just notice how the footprint is. Basically roll and flatten the lumbar. And then we're going to inhale and roll along the back of the pelvis to create a lumbar arch. So exhaling, drawing pelvis towards face, inhaling, drawing pelvis away towards knees. Now we're thinking about the pelvis like a bowl of water. I often use this image. We're solutioning on the exhalation that water towards the face, solutioning on an inhalation, the water down towards the feet. If you want to take the pelvic diaphragm into this, we've got this pressurized system. We're going to exhale, lift pelvic floor or diaphragm. Inhale, notice pelvic diaphragm sort of expand. Exhale, flattening lumbar, a sense of lift. So like a jellyfish, those diaphragms work in unison. And release, pelvic diaphragm flattens down, widen. Inhale, respiratory diaphragm opens and widens. Exhale, and a sense of lift. But just notice if that moves into the throat. It can move into the throat, and you can end up feeling quite stuck there. So moving between these points, notice if your head is tilting. Is the movement moving up into the head? Now, if you're relaxed, it will be moving all the way up the spine. That's what we're looking for. If the head's not moving, just acknowledge that. Means that you're holding around the upper spine, the shoulders potentially. Super. Now we're going to take this into 2-foot support or Dvipadipitham. So with the feet and the knees hip width apart, we can lift the arms and the pelvis and roll up through the lumbar, thoracic and the vertebra of the clavicular spine. Maybe the hands come all the way back, maybe not. And then we're going to drape and softly feel all the vertebrae move down. Okay, so we're going to utilize our vibrational things here. So as we inhale the arms up and overhead, we're going to our arms down. See how the exhalation extends as you utilize your vocalization, and then inhale up when you're ready. No rush here at all. Inhaling. Two more times. Allowing for the effects of the vocalization to make its effect. And at the end of the next exhalation, just pause. Pausing at the end of the exhalation. Kumbhaka, and allow for the air to rush in when necessary. We're just going to bring the hands and the fingers together and rest them on the forehead just for a moment, making sure the chin is tucked in. And then you feel comfortable here, breathing into this space, noticing how the throat feels here. Now, the next time we come up with the hips, we're going to draw up and hold this action, Setu Bandhasana, by bringing the hands underneath the buttocks. Make sure the knees feel comfortable. And you create a little ledge with yourself onto the shoulders, allowing for that chin to tuck in and the neck to feel lovely and long. Opening up around the occipital ridge, the area at the base of the skull where it meets the neck. An area that has many, many lymph nodes in that region. And that's why it can feel so nice to have that area massaged. And then we're going to release the arms out to the side and the vertebra come all the way back down. So just for a moment, let's bring the leg in towards the chest and externally rotate, waking up the foot, drawing the knees in, feeling into the hips, rolling from side to side, and you'll thread the needle. Now, I want you to acknowledge what moves up into the throat and the jaw here. And if you find that the jaw becomes rather tense, see if you can release that region by literally unhinging the jaw. Notice how the throat responds, as the throat is interconnected with the jaw, and the jaw has a relationship with the hips and the tension in the pelvis. Lovely. And then allowing for the hand to drop away, let's bring the arms out to the side and drop the knees over into a supine rotation, keeping the shoulder blade down. And notice how the neck feels here as we work with the eye muscles, to see if you can gaze over to the right side. The neck feels tight, just look up towards the ceiling, breathing into the side body. And indeed, as I said, if the neck doesn't feel good in that angle, adjust the position of the gaze and look up towards the ceiling. And if you're not already doing so, bring the gaze up towards the ceiling and roll the knees in, dropping the feet down, coming to the other side. This time we bring the left leg out to the side, flexion of the foot, gathering the knees in towards the center, waking up both feet, and rock from side to side. Now awareness here into the jaw and the throat region. Utilizing the exhalation here for the intended effect of creating a sense of release, unhinging the jaw and stretching the face. Now we're going to release the hands from the back of the knee, bring them into a T shape by the side of the body and rock the knees over to the other side. And I should have said, actually, if you've got a bolster, it can be really nice to support the knees in order for the shoulder blade not to lift, so you've got extra support. And of course, then gazing over to the opposing side. How does it feel to gaze over to the left hand? And if it doesn't feel comfortable, bring the gaze up towards the ceiling. There's always good reason for necks to become very stiff and very tense. Breathing into your Jatara Parivriti, your supine rotation. And then bringing the gaze up towards center. We're going to lift the knees in towards the midline, draw the knees in towards the chest, and rock and roll back and forth, feeling into how it might be to invert and rolling forwards. And again, noticing how it might feel to invert the body. Maybe you can get the legs all the way over to the back of the mat. Depends on your shoulder mobility. And then rolling forwards, crossing over the shins, and then flipping back into our trusty all four position. And I really want you to think about waking up the hands here as though the hands are like feet. Keep those knees hip width apart, flatten the feet against the floor. And obviously if you've got your blanket, great, let's use the blanket. We're spreading through the hands. Now, if you have carpal tunnel or anything, a weakness in the wrists, or again, arthritis, you'll want to be cautious about using the hands. Now, this is partly going to be our base of support for crow, which we'll play with later. So thinking about those hands and spreading the fingers wide, we've got the Hasta Bandha, which is the hand lock. So spreading the fingers wide and pushing them down into the ground to lift up and arch through the palms of the hands. We're going to spiral to feel into the tiny muscles that get very tight, especially when we're using our smartphones, rocking from side to side. And then bringing the hands in towards the knees. And you'll notice I've really reduced the angle here. And opening up these muscles. And then flipping the hands so the fingers face inwards. And you can do this one by one. If it feels too strong, you can bring one hand into your neutral, as it were, and work with one hand at a time. And then again, we're going to flip the hands upside down. Now, you don't have to do both at the same time. You can do one and then the other. Exploring again, opening up the muscles, not trying to break the wrists or create flexibility in the wrists. We're actually just trying to wake them up. And then as you flip the hands back down, you'll notice the fingers spread nice and wide, and maybe the hands feel different in the way that they make contact with the ground. Now, with this sense of stability, just acknowledge how your spine is, making any changes to the spine, if anything's twinging or tweaking, so a little bit of cat-cow here. We're then going to draw the knee in towards the outside and come into this 3-point contact, waking up glutes, and that can have a stabilizing effect on our pelvic diaphragm. Sculpting round nice and slow, and then coming back in the opposite direction, breathing and using your drishti down in front of the hands to keep the neck long. No looking over to the side like I am. Just do as I say, not as I do. And bring the knee down, coming to the other side. Sculpting round with your knee, waking up your foot and making any adjustments to your alignment if you find you're lolling over to one side. And if you're moving the leg really quickly, obviously you're making your life quite easy, but you're just overriding any potential sensation, coming back in the opposite direction. The slower, the harder. Doing things slowly is actually more challenging, believe it or not. And then bring the knee down. We're then going to come into our thread the needle. So acknowledging our shoulders here, bring the right hand in front of the face, open up to the side, little rotation, and thread your needle through. Now you can flow between these points. Inhale in, lift and reach, exhale, and come through. And your movements may change every time you do this. The next time we're going to have the opportunity to hold this. And wherever you are with this is right for you. It doesn't matter if the side of the face doesn't come all the way down. And you can explore lifting up the arm towards the ceiling if you want to come into a stronger rotation. Or you can look into straightening the arm out in front of you. That can feel rather nice. But if anything's twinging, please don't. And then bring the hand back to the face. I'm going to unfurl and bring the left hand into the middle. Inhale, reaching. Exhale, thread. Inhale. Exhale. Threading. Inhale. And exhale. Holding this, finding support, thinking about opening up if you like, or bring the arm up and over. Stretching more intensely into the shoulder and coming into a bit of a puppy that changes the angle of the shoulder girdle. And then bring the hand back towards the face. Unravel and come back into your tabletop. Now we're going to extend the left leg out behind, keeping the squareness of the hips, and then bring the other leg out. So we're coming into your plank. And breathing with a sense of length around the back of the neck. Thinking about the throat, thinking about Jaladhara Bandha, making any adjustments to your plank. You can either knees, chest, chin, bringing the contact to the floor, down into your crocodile, your prone, or you can chaturanga, the elbows coming in and scoop the chest forwards into your crocodile. Bringing the hands in front of you, we relax the body into the ground, looking to the left, looking to the right. And then gazing down in front of us, Jaladhara Bandha, drishti at the floor, hands underneath the shoulders, pinning down through the front of the pelvis, the front of the feet. We're going to lift into Cobra, Bhujangasana. Now it might be that you want to open the stance of the hands, or you can just lift with the hands hovering, or you can make contact with the ground. But ensure that your neck is nice and long. Sometimes I overcompensate and droop my neck, but that can feel really lovely. So you can explore draping the head if that works for you, or indeed just try and keep the neck in line with the rest of the spine. And then release and come back into your little crocodile, rocking the hips from side to side. Opportunity to come into your cobra one more time. Bring the hands underneath the shoulders, thinking about that lovely alignment all the way up through the spine into the neck, to the crown of the head, Bhujangasana. And indeed, you can use the hands to come into a higher cobra, but ensure that you're not crunching into your lumbar and that extension movement is coming up all the way through the spine before draping yourself back, pushing down through the hands, coming back into Balasana, child's pose. Dropping forehead down or bringing the ground up towards the forehead. And I'm just going to move my blanket while you're in child's pose so it's not in the way. So from our child's pose, acknowledge the arms lengthening away from the body here. I'm going to tuck the toes under, and with our attention at the front of the throat, with a slight Jaladhara Bandha, but dropping the head to release up, coming into your downward dog. Let the head release, shaking it out left to right. Jaladhara Bandha here, lengthening the back of the throat, tucking the chin in, releasing the crown of the head. Breathing here. 5 rounds of the breath. Coming back to your Ujjayi breath. Inhaling and exhaling with an audible sound of the breath internally. And then padding the feet forwards. We're coming into Uttanasana, forward fold. Feeling into the footprint beneath you. Draping yourself over the legs, bending the knees, and letting the head hang heavy. We're going to draw up into Tadasana. And I'm going to move the screen, otherwise you won't see me. Coming up into Tadasana, with that last thing coming up, of course, being the head. So that's really key. And as you come into your Tadasana, acknowledge that mountain pose. So you're nice and sturdy. You're not standing in your usual fashion, which might be like this and asymmetric. We're focusing on a symmetry within the body. Now, from this Tadasana position, we're going to think about strong alignment here. Again, with Jaladhara Bandha. Lifting up the left knee, we're going to swing that foot back to come into Virabhadrasana 1. So the hips are like headlamps and they move forwards. You've either got the heel off the ground or you're swiveling the heel in about 45-degree angle or less. It depends on your hips. You want to feel sturdy and supported. So you can open up the stance. You're not like in a tight rope stance. Feeling grounded, supported and strong through the legs. Lifting up through the upper body. Releasing around the shoulders. Releasing around the jaw. Jaladhara Bandha. Coming into Virabhadrasana 1. And you can open the arms up like you're holding a beach ball in front of you. And that can relax the shoulders. Now from this position, we're going to step forwards. So we've always got this integrity of the front knee and take the leg back now into Virabhadrasana 2. You want that front knee to be in line as you bend with the front foot. That back leg just comes back as much as it can for your pelvis because this is an external rotation. So if the knee is winging in, and I'll show you for an example, that's so bad for the knee if you do that repetitively. If that's the case, what you need to do is reduce the stance. Think about adjusting towards Virabhadrasana 1. Coming into your Virabhadrasana 2, it's a mouthful, we're going to bring the arms out in front and stroke up through the inner arm and the collarbone to come into Virabhadrasana 2. Make sure that knee is integral to your positioning. And to relax the shoulders, we're going to open the hands up towards the ceiling and bring the hands down. And then think about a tug of war as though someone's pulling from the back and then pulling from the front. And you'll feel your torso moving over the front leg and the back leg. And find a somewhere in between position as you acknowledge your pelvic floor, pelvic diaphragm, lifting quite naturally without you having to do anything. Now from this position, take note if you've got bricks, you might want to bring bricks in front of your feet, or you can just work with your balance without. We're going to take the weight into the front knee and we're going to draw the hands alongside the body to come into a balance, using the wall if you need to. Virabhadrasana 3, flying in your aeroplane. And with a sense of control, thinking about Jaladhara Bandha, so tucking the chin slightly, the hyoid bone lifts, thinking about Ujjayi breath, thinking about your breath supporting you, we're going to bring the leg back into a slightly more shallow stance. From this position, if you've got bricks, I have a few bricks here, I'm going to bring them in front of my foot, to the side of my foot, okay? And we're going to take a stance with both feet pointing in the same direction. And we're going to open up that stance so you're nice and sturdy. Okay, so we're coming into Trikonasana, Peter Blackerby style. So he's a past osteopath, now yoga teacher in Brighton. And he's very much about doing things in a way that's functional so we don't damage ourselves in any way. So shearing is one of the things that happens to yoga teachers and yoga practitioners over long periods of time. from doing Trikonasana in a more traditional way. So we're going to come in the safe way. Using the hands and bring them to the hip points, we're going to do a forward fold. Okay, so you may be familiar with this shape. We're then going to get hold of our bricks and lengthen the spine. So the more bricks, the better, or the more support, the better. Now from this position, we're going to swivel the back foot into an angle. That just gives us a little bit more space. As we do our bow and arrow, we're going to bring the hand, stroking it up through the inside of the arm, the collarbone, stacking the shoulders, lifting up towards the ceiling, the drishti follows. A lovely long line from tailbone all the way up the spine to the top of the head. So all of this is integral. We don't think about the spine as being separate elements here. Gazing. Now the next stage is to lift and take the weight into the side body. So the hand is floating to come into your Trikonasana. And you can explore bending the front knee, straightening the front knee. What change takes place to bend the front knee and straighten? For some bodies, there may be some effects in the lumbar. It may be helpful to bend the front knee. Just explore that for yourself. Though we're going to reduce, revert, and go back through our bow and arrow, getting hold of the bricks, straightening the lumbar, swiveling the back foot in, bending the front knee. And then we're going to bring the hands to the hip points and ease our way out with our Trikonasana and step forwards. If you've got the bricks in between the legs, don't worry. This time we're going to come back in the opposite direction. So that right leg comes back into your Virabhadrasana 1. Remembering heel can come off the ground or swivel. The headlamps, which are our hip points, come forwards and we feel nice and sturdy and strong. And it's a lovely position. As we lift up the arms, feel free, light and easy. As you open up into your beach ball stance, so you're opening up the shoulders, releasing around the jaw, the throat, the facial muscles, feeling into a lovely Virabhadrasana 1. We're then going to step forwards, so we've got that integrity of the alignment to come back into Virabhadrasana 2. So a lengthening takes place, but you want to make sure that knee is directly over the toes. And then we're going to open up into Virabhadrasana 2, bringing the palms up towards the ceiling to relax the shoulders, bring them back down, and then tug of war over the knee and back. How does it feel to draw over the front leg and over the back leg? And then find your neutral space in between, gazing over the front fingers here. Lovely Virabhadrasana 2 position. And it will feel right when the alignment is right. Acknowledge how that front knee feels. Lovely. From this position, we're going to come into Virabhadrasana 3. So as we draw ourselves forwards, due to lack of space, I'm going to bring my hands alongside the hip points and you fly the body forwards. How is that in your body? And you'll notice all the little incremental movements within the ankle to keep you balanced. And again, Jaladhara Bandha, tuck the chin in, drishti down at the floor. With control, bring yourself back into that position. With the feet now facing forwards. It's a shallower position, but you'll widen out the feet so you feel stable. Because if you do this on a tightrope, you will wobble and fall. So coming into that position, hands at hip points, thinking about the throat, your Jaladhara Bandha, forward fold. Get hold of the bricks if you can. You can come onto the knuckles if necessary. Lengthening from tailbone to the crown of the head. And I'm going to swivel so I don't have my back to everyone. Thinking about that lengthening is really integral to this. And then swiveling the heel in slightly. You can feel like the bend of the front knee can come in as we bow and arrow up from our stable support of the bricks to come into your Trikonasana. And the gaze follows towards the hand. And you can explore straightening the knee, bending the knee. And then we're going to take the weight off the brick and think about Trikonasana from this viewpoint with the length from the tailbone all the way up to the top of the head, gazing if the neck will allow for it. And then we're going to reverse bow and arrow all the way back down and through, swiveling the heel out to the side, straightening the spine. You've got that lovely long length from tailbone to crown of the head, bringing the hands to the hip points, bringing yourself back up and coming into Tadasana. Super. Now from this space here, we're going to come up onto the tippy toes and draw ourselves down. We're transitioning down to the ground. Note clicking of my knees. So we're going to explore Ustrasana, which we also did for our heart opening. So you'll feel familiar with how this is in your body. We're going to use our bolster if you have a bolster. And then if you have padding, and I might need to move the angle of the camera, use the padding. So the padding will be under the knee and the lower leg. So it may need to feel longer. So you've got your little setup. And your first position to work from is kneeling. So notice how it feels to kneel. Okay, and we can't take it for granted. Sometimes kneeling is really hard. When we've got this padding under our legs, we've got lovely extra support. So how does it feel to kneel and to bring the hands back behind you if you have a bolster? Indeed, if you don't have a bolster, either use maybe a sofa or come down to the floor. And we're going to open up on an exhalation, bring the hips forwards into Ustrasana from this angle and bring ourselves down. Now, as you open up here, you'll notice your quads are needing to lengthen. The iliopsoas is required to lengthen, and the front of the body. The chin is going to be tucked in to keep the neck long. Okay, the second position we work from is the hands at the back of the pelvis, and we're thinking about shoulder blades moving together to open up the thoracic, and we're lengthening again along the front line of the body, not so much thinking about contraction. And it is the case that if you're tight in the iliacus and the iliopsoas, you'll feel tightness in the lumbar. So if you're feeling anything into the lumbar here, I want you to think about lengthening the body, not just taking the body backwards. Making space. Maybe the position of the pelvis can help if you make the position of the pelvis different by drawing tailbone down as you come forwards. Tiny little tweaks can make all the difference. So you have that position, chin still tucked in. Okay, the next position to come into, you can see if you want to drop back towards the ankles. And if you're here, by all means, you can explore the chin dropping back. Noticing how that feels to open up the throat. If it feels cranky at the back of the neck, bring the head forwards. It's much like being in chakrasana in terms of protection of the head. Breathing into that space and coming forwards. And you have the opportunity to come into your counter pose, which you really will require after the spinal extension, where you come into your tiny little mouse-like child's pose. You can come down onto your elbows, or you can bring the forehead down with the hands alongside. And feeling into the lumbar, let's bring the hands around the back of the pelvis. Bring the hands into Yoni Mudra. Thumb and forefinger comes together in a diamond shape. And allow for that area to get some acknowledgement as you stroke your hands across the back of the pelvis. And then from this position, you may want to use a block, as we want some contact with the ground with the forehead, to bring the hands clasped together to come back into your rabbit. Rolling up into the crown of the head this time. So we're doing Yoga Mudra before, this is your rabbit, allowing for the arms to come up and over. 3 times, rolling from forehead to crown of the head. How does that feel? In your spine, your back, and then release your block and release your blanket. Now you can come back into your child's pose if your spine requires it. The next stage we're going to work into is crow. So this is either Bakasana or Kakasana, crow or crane. I believe it's crow. Crane, you have straightened arms. I want you to acknowledge how your squat is. Now you can be on your tippy toes. You don't need the heels down. And this is partly why we prepared our external rotation. Now the next stage is to feel into what the hands are like as you make contact with the ground, which is why we were doing the clocking of the wrists. These hands are going to be our feet. Okay, so thinking about spreading through the fingers, how does it feel to take the weight of the knees into the arms? Now, part of the training this position is to bring the knees into the armpits, but it's not 100% necessary. You can have the knees out and away from the arms. Now, the next position that you're going to work into is lifting the knees into the armpits, or just coming forwards onto a little shelf into crane or crow. And you bring the feet off the ground. But bringing the feet off the ground only comes when you find your balance. So it's really an interesting place to play with. And it's about trust, and it's about the sort of anatomical positioning of finding a shelf. So all of us have different anatomy. Some of us have longer arms, some of us have much longer torsos, and then if you have a really long femur, it might overshoot. So exploring your body and how this shelf may come about. Spreading through those fingers is really crucial to get the support with the arms. This is an arm balance. With all of the arm balances, it's really about the contact that we make with the ground first. If we don't make contact with the ground, our foundation is shaky. The next stages are finding a position that might feel secure, and by all means, trusting that you can, and all of us doing this would be able to do this if we practice and practice and practice. Eventually it would happen, I promise you. So just playing with that, and then when you're finished, it's a really nice one to do in the grass. We're going to come onto our backs. So from this position, we're going to come down, making a little bit of an area for ourselves. So the bolster is going to be behind us in terms of where we are with our mat. And then we're going to get hold of the blanket, and we want the blanket to be under the shoulders for our shoulder stand. We don't have to come into shoulder stand today, but shoulder stand is a really good example of moving into the throat center. If you're happy to roll along the spine, and my bolster seems to be miles off, then you can come into shoulder stand. But shoulder stand can feel quite constricting around the front of the body if the shoulder mobility isn't there. But if you can come into a position where the legs come over, you're pretty much there. So it can be a soft place. And there are ways into shoulder stand with use of the wall, which makes it feel very different. It's difficult to do that online. It's better to do that in person. With our shoulder stand, the legs come up towards the ceiling, but you can come into pose of tranquility to be in the softer space like this. So you have those positions. Make sure the hands come in nice and close to support you, and the feet are flexed in yoga. So energetically, the energy comes out of the feet. So wherever you are with the shoulder stand, the contraindications here are migraines, eye issues like glaucoma and high blood pressure. And you might feel like there's constriction around the front of the body when you're in that angle. Again, that's shoulder mobility. But if you do feel that constriction, can you focus the breath through the back line of the body, which is 60% of your lung capacity anyway? Obviously, you can come into legs up the wall if you need to come into something more gentle, or waterfall that comes underneath the pelvis. Now, if you're in your shoulder stand, I invite you to consider the next stage, which is plow. Now, as you can see, my bolster's not quite in the place I need it to be in. But if you have your bolster behind you, you might find that the feet find the bolster. And plow, or halasana, is different in terms of there is more of an ask on the shoulder mobility here. And you want to keep the hands around the back of the pelvis unless the feet meet the ground. Plow, halasana. And you'll feel a sense of constriction around the throat. But you don't want really any weight to go into the neck. The next stage, this won't be for everyone, this is a little bit of exploration, is ear pressure pose, where you drop the knees down towards the ears. Then you'll notice what is required of you for that. So wherever you are in your version, explore that. I'm coming out, just have a look. You've got lots of places that you can work with, but they're a really good example of the throat. So if you're in Viparita Karini, for instance, you can still acknowledge the space around the throat due to the positionality of the neck. And if you're in your inversion, we're going to roll out as though each vertebra rolls out one by one. Allow for the head to come up to acknowledge the position of the head here. Hands come out to the side and we rock the knees to and fro. Feeling into a rotation. And then we have the option of coming into, there are two options here, mongoose, where we bring the hands behind and open up around the front of the collarbone and chest. Or you can come into fish from our position on the ground, straightening out the legs, clasping the hands underneath the buttocks, lifting up through elbows. From this position here, it may look like you're on your head, but you're not. You're positioned on your shoulders. And then to come down, you draw the chin in and release. And then we're all going to make our way down into Shavasana, corpse pose, making any adjustments that you need to. And I'll come up and just talk through what we're going to do next. Now, if you'd rather come into an easy cross-legged position, you can do that too. But otherwise, it's best to come into your corpse pose. Changing your alignment as you lie down. Making adjustments around the back of the head. Lengthening the back of the occiput by stroking the hands up and tilting the chin in. And if you're in a seated position, come back to Jaladhara Bandha, thinking about that hyoid bone in the center of the neck, drawing the chin in slightly, thinking about lengthening along the crown. So wherever you are, you're thinking about symmetry, alignment, and coming into the present moment if you can symbolize that through your body. So that's not moving into the dorsal, the back line of the body, or moving into the ventral, the front line of the body, but being very much in that space in the middle. Now, because this session is about the throat chakra, one of the most obvious practices is to explore the bija mantra, the seed mantras, which are to do with vibrations visualized down in certain areas of the body. You should be quite aware of the energy centers now because we've been working through them and accessing them and enhancing them. And these energy centers can either be lacking in energy or overt in energy. The first energy center, and we're going to chant the sound Lam. I'll take you through it. You can join in audibly or you can internally repeat the mantra with me. So the first one situated down at the root, perineum, base of the spine, Muladhara chakra, the root chakra, and we are sending our awareness down into that area. And we repeat Lam 3 times. The next stage, we move up to the other chakra in the pelvis, so Svadhisthana, the pelvis, which is this lovely architectural structure just above the root. So Svadhisthana is going to be the sound Vam 3 times. We then move up to the navel, really key area, Manipura, and repeat Ram 3 times. We then come up to the heart space at the sternum and repeat Yam. Now, when I do this, I'm going to bring my hands into the areas. You can do the same. We then come up to the throat, vishuddhi, Ham 3 times. Then to Anjana chakra in between the eyebrows, so connected to the pineal gland, Om. And then when we get to the top of the head, Sahasrara, at the fontanelle, we observe silence internally. So wherever you are, whether you're in a seated position, whether you're in your corpse pose, you can choose to bring the hands to the area or just acknowledge it with your awareness. Inhaling freely and exhaling freely, taking your attention all the way down to the perineum, your Muladhara chakra. You can work with your pelvic diaphragm instead, if that makes more sense for you. Inhaling freely, exhaling freely. After the next inhalation, Lam. Lam. Inhaling. Lam. Lam. Drawing your attention up now to the area around the pelvis, Svadhisthana. So within the pelvic region, we're going to repeat Vam 3 times, inhaling freely. Vam. 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 Attention now up to the navel region, Manipura, repeating 3 times. Ram, inhaling. Ram. 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 Taking your attention up to the sternum, the breastbone, the heart center, repeating 3 times. Yam. Yam. Inhaling. Yam. Yam. Taking your attention up to the throat, vishuddhi chakra, repeating 3 times. Hum. Inhaling. Hum. Inhaling. Hum. Inhaling. Hum. Moving that attention up to the third eye center, in between the eyebrows, the forehead, Ajna chakra, and repeating Om. So you might like to bring the fingers together and both thumbs resting against the forehead. Inhaling. Om. 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 And then moving the attention up to Sahasrara, the crown of the head, and observing silence, the hands resting either against the knees, or you can bring the hands to the top of the head. With your attention at the top of the head, and maybe acknowledge the space above the top of the head. And if you're rolling, if you're lying on your side, invitation to roll over onto either side of your body at the end of the following sound. If you're in an upright position, just acknowledge the sound, however that comes through, with your attention very much at the top of the head. That sense of Jaladhara Bandha very gently, allowing for the spine to rise up tall from the sit bones. And if you're on your sides, reaching down through the arms to ground into an easy cross-legged position. And if it feels comfortable to do so, close the eyes or gently gaze down in front of you. And to finish the practice, we're going to inhale the arms up overhead and on the arms down through the midline, if that feels comfortable for you to do so. Inhaling. Oh. Bowing forwards in acknowledgement of one another in the space in between. Namaste.